Very good morning. Freilich Hanukkah. We should be able to do our Puhulas on Hanukkah and bring the light to the world. We are learning Hilchas Biat Hamikdash, and today we're going to learn Perek Hey, two halachas, halacha Aleph and halacha Beis, and discuss some of the relevant issues regarding that. So let's begin. Rambam Hilchas Biat Hamikdash Perek Hey halacha Aleph writes, Mitzvah's essay lekadish kain ha'eved yadayim, which is a pasuk, as I'll bring, that you should sanctify the hands and feet of the kain ha'eved, v'achakach yaved, and then he should serve. Shnema v'rachatzu Aaron Evanovus Menes Deim Leim. Now, the Kohen Sha'avad Veloy Kiddush Yadayim Raglav Shachris. Now, Shachris is lav dafka, just means before you started working. Chayiv Misa Midesh Maim Shnem Yichud Semayim Legus Avidasi Psula Ben Kain Gadol Ben Kain Hedi. Just a note, as later he writes, Kain Gadol only means the one in the morning, but not on Kippur when he washes 5 times. That's not make the way the psula. Halacha Beis. Uminayin shavedas psula. Shenema chukas elam loy lazar. And a big day cool, which we just learned 2 days ago. Huayma chukas elam ma mechusa begodem chal aveda, lacking godem chal aveda. K'meshe b'yarnu, which we're going to talk about also because there's a relationship there. That's the 2 halachas that we're going to discuss. Just to note, it's clear in this Rambam, the wording of Kapanim, that the chiyuv that there is, if chas v'shalom a person does go in, he says clearly the kohen she'avad the Kiddush Yadayim, kind that served Aveda and the Kiddush Yadayim. In Sefer HaMitzvahs, he writes, Lirchetz Yadayim Raglayim B'chol Zman Sheyitzrichim Likonos Leichel Oy Likorev Laveda. To wash your hands and feet at any moment that you need to go into the Eichel or to come into Aveda. So he adds which seems to be not necessarily Aveda. Now this Shaila, whether it's Aveda or not, is a Shaila Rishonim. The Rash and Kalim, Mishnah Melech quotes him, writes that it's not sure. From the Rambam, it depends. If you look at Rambam by us, you look at Rambam in Sefer HaMitzvahs, but we know that the diuk is always according to the Rambam in Yad HaKazaka. However, we did learn previously Perek Zayin Halacha Chaf Aleph and Hilchas Beis Hamikdash, which we already learned. There he does say, "Ha'heichol mekudesh mibein ha'ulam el mizbeach she'ein nichnas l'sham el rakutz yadayim v'raglayim." You can only go in there if you wash your hands and feet. So, it would seem that he does agree that there's something wrong with the hand. So the answer is that the simplest answer to that is that's with Rabbanan. Taisa says that going into that there are milas, yes, a milas, 10 milas that the Rambam mentions there, that's a mila. It's Chachamim made levels of holiness. The Minchas Chinuch Taked deals with this issue in Parashas Kisisa, Mitzvah Kuvav, and he clearly says that Rambam seems clear. There's nothing to talk about. Only Avodah is higher. There's a lot to talk about that, but that's not. We don't have the time to give to everything, so we'll just leave it at that. Okay, I want to note a few things in this Rambam. I'm going to use a loshon that immediately jumps out of you. Lekadesh koyin ha'oived va'achakach yaved. Right? So what's this koyin ha'oived? Once he's talking about achakach yaved, then we don't need koyin ha'oived. Should be lekadesh koyin yadav ragla va'achakach yaved. What's this koyin ha'oived? And the truth is, he's not an oived yet. Still, he's lekadesh yadav ragla. Why do they even call him a koyin ha'oived? Kain habolav, there's what to say, but this kain ha'oived is a strange notion. Now, the interesting thing is, I don't find anybody questioning that. And every time I see that, it always bothers me that maybe we're just asking a question that doesn't have any meaning. However, I found that the Minchas Chinuch passingly takes note of this, and he wants to say that I'm here to stress only avodah, kain ha'oived and lav. Okay, it's a little hard to understand what he's saying, but at least he is bothered by the question. Okay. To note that the issue we mentioned before is brought in whether it's only for Aveda or not. There's two theses to look up if you want. Thesis in Hedron, thesis in Yuma, and he goes in two opposite shittas there. And he brings from a Ritzvah, famous Ritzvah, that there is Chiyuv Misa and a Biyarei Konis, which means when you go in just without doing anything. And that's where the discussion is. It's Rashi and Chumash seems to say it's Lahaktir, only Lahaktir. There's a lot to talk about there, as I said. Okay, so I want to try to understand what this Rambam is saying. Again, there are a lot of issues, but at time constraints, I don't want to get into everything, but perhaps we can get a little picture of what the Rambam is saying. But in order to do that, I want to introduce, back up a little bit and talk about Mechusa Begodim, somebody doing Aveda without Begodim. And there is a machlekes, the Rambam and the Ramban, regarding Big Day Kohuna for Aveda. The Rambam says, as we learned earlier, said a couple of days, 2 days ago, that a mitzvah to make begodim, and that without begodim, the Rambam uses a very strong lashon, which is a lashon of the Gemara, but the Rambam brings it, and we'll see soon how it's understood. So the Rambam says, it says in the pasuk, he says if anybody does Aveda Mechusa Begodim, and he adds the word kizar, like a zar, shashimish. And he says from the pasuk, that when you put on the avnei, then they have kuhuna. So we learn out Zman shebigdeyim aleim kunasim ain't bigdeyim aleim ain't kunasim. And he adds again halareihem kizarim v'nem avazar karavimus. Now, the Ramban in Sefer HaMitzvahs, Mitzvahs Asay Lamed Gimel, as we know, the Ramban has Asogos on the Rambam Sefer HaMitzvahs. He takes issue with the fact that the Rambam counts Mechusa Begodim, that wearing Begodim as a mitzvah. He says he doesn't see any reason for it. The whole and he addresses that the Bahag doesn't need to bring it. Why? What do you need begodim for? To do Aveda. That's all. It's in order to be able to do Aveda. It's not a mitzvah itself. I don't have to wear begodim all the time. There's no wearing begodim. Doing Aveda. So doing Aveda, I need to wear begodim, but there's no need of a kohen walking around with the begodim. So either we're in wearing begodim, you have a mitzvah wearing begodim. You can't tell me I have a mitzvah to wear begodim because I have to wear in order to do Aveda. That's his time. And that's based on the Rambam. The Rambam seems to indicate so that mitzvahs that are not for itself anything, they're only there for something else, and you don't count as a separate mitzvah. In addition, the Ramban, the Balalachas Gedela, the Bahag, they count a loisaseh for not wearing begodim and doing Aveda. The Rambam has no loisaseh, and the Rambam holds it's a mitzvah. Okay, so they had two arguments. So let's understand what they're arguing over. There's an interesting Rambam in today we're doing Hey Vav Zion, so this will leave for Shabbos where we do Ches Tes Yud. And since there's no share on Shabbos, so we can incorporate it also. I'm not being not the rule. I'm not taking away from anybody. So now in Perek Tes, Hilchas Biat Hamikdash, he writes, Hatame ubalmum v'shelei rochutz yadayim raglayim sheshimesh v'mikdash ein chayav ela avedus shehazor chayav alemis, which is avedus matana. Not avedus. See, look, I don't want to get into the details, but that's the law. So the Mefarshim, the Neisei Kalim of the Rambam, ask, why doesn't the Rambam mention Mechusar Begadim? It also has the same halachas. And there he writes it as it's also Kizar. And they answer a very interesting answer. The Mechusar Begadim is not Kizar, it is a Zar. And therefore, there's no reason to mention him that he has like a Zar. By once, in other words, they don't say that. We'll take it a step further. The Rambam's understanding of the Gemara of Bizman Shebigdeim Aleim Kunasam Aleim is literal. Without Begadim felt in Kuhuna, you're not a kohen. You become a kohen when you put on Begadim. I don't mean the halachas of marrying grusha and all that. Talking Aveda. The darg of Aveda, you need to be a kohen for Aveda. You need a kohen for Aveda for being in the Beis Hamikdash. That creates kahuna, creates a big kahuna. Memele kahuna, without that you're a zar. Without that you're a pasha zar. The Beis Hamikdash, you're a zar. If I say that for emphasis, first of all, there's no lav from a Mechusar Begadim. How can be a lav? There's no lav on a zar to do aveda without being nikun. Don't do aveda without being nikun. I'm a zar. So you can't tell a kohen, don't do aveda without being nikun. Don't do aveda as you are. You can't do aveda because you are not a kohen. You're not a darg of kohen to go to the Beis Hamikdash. Second, there's also a special mitzvah because the mitzvah is to be a kohen. Now it's just like Rabbi Silver pointed out to me with in his share he spoke recently that there's a mitzvah to make a bias muchan lahakiv kavan. So why is that a mitzvah? It's only achana to akravas yonas. The answer is very simple. Because it's muchan. You need a bias muchan. You need a kohen. You need a kohen. You got a kohen. Kohen is a mitzvah. That's what the mitzvah is. This is the gaya too. That's the gaya. The fact is now you become something. You are doing something independent of just aveda. You're accomplishing something other than just doing aveda. You are becoming something. All right, so that's the case. It works out very nicely. The machlok is the Rambam. Okay. So I want to now, let's transfer this discussion to Kiddush Yadayim right away. Why isn't the Ramban bothered on this? The whole of the Kiddush Yadayim is to wash your hands, right? That's what the Rambam says. So what's this going on over here? Why is it a mitzvah? The Ramban should scream on the Rambam. It's not a mitzvah. Same reason that Mechusar Begadim is not a mitzvah. It shouldn't be a mitzvah. There's no need of just washing hands. Washing hands to go do aveda. If you'll tell me there's any washing hands anytime you want, so that you should be able to go into the Beis Hamikdash and walk around. Kevin the hair, it's easy to understand that there's a mitzvah. But here, what mitzvah is there? Why is it considered a mitzvah? Why doesn't the Ramban ask? And the Rambam, okay, we need a beer in the Rambam too. Because he can't say that being the kuna makes you a zar. He's not a zar. Okay, so here I'm going to tell you a word that's probably more in the Lumdish realm. But perhaps that's what the Rambam is stressing. Koyin ha'ovid. There's a koyin, make him a koyin. Then there's becoming an ovid. Becoming on you a chalais ovid, meaning you are now muchen lavid. Just like the Beis Hamikdash is muchen, these now muchen lavid. That's why the Rambam writes that lashon l'kadesh koyin ha'ovid. Not just the Kaddish Lavid. You become a koyin ha'ovid with your Kiddush Yadayim Reglaim. And that's the way you become. And that's why it's not a chona for Aveda. It's the way you are shaykh to Aveda. Where you become muchem Aveda. Now, the Ramban might agree to this too. He doesn't agree that you're not a koyin. But the idea of a koyin ha'ovid, that he could agree to. It's interesting that in this same halachas that we're going to learn, we're going to see that the Rambam, there's a shay like this. Avodah needs to be standing, not sitting, right? Rashi, the Gemara in Zvachim, the Gemara asks, why can't you, when you're learning this halacha today, how you wash your hands, it's a very complicated thing. You put the right hand over the right foot, left hand over the left foot. It's really, it's a balancing act. In fact, the Gemara, I got a solution for you. Sit down. It'll be a lot easier. So the Gemara says you can't. It says, the Gemara, the pasuk calls it sheres, meaning service, aveda. The sheres momentu. So Rashi says, iskish kiddush l'sheres. Kiddush is a hekish. The Rambam doesn't say that. Rambam, Perik, and Bechlal, the juxtaposition of the halacha and the Rambam is also interesting. There's halacha tezayin, halacha yud zayin. Halacha tezayin, he writes, how do you do kiddush? And he writes there, he says, "Ve'einei mekadosh k'shu yeshiv." Don't do it sitting. V'nei shehu ki avoda. Ve'ein avoda la movement. Now it's a hekish. It's like avoda. And an avoda is not movement. Now, you would think that we know about this fact that you got to be standing. No, that's the next halacha. And that's where he learns it out. And he learns out that you're not allowed to, you have to stand by Aveda. So there's two issues here. First of all, it's clear that he holds it's ki Aveda. What's ki Aveda? What's his ki? Second is, why didn't he first tell us about Aveda and then the ki Aveda? A famous story with the Pelish Chassid. There was a guy, I don't say who it was about. It was a Chassid, but there was a Pelish, a holy Jew that had there was a big machlekes. His opponent's name was Klipa. His name was Lipa. I'm sorry, Lipa. So he went to see him. And he said, we came to see what Lipa looks like. He says, because I always heard about Klipa, Chafadimian. Now I wanted to see what Lipa itself looks like. Akabanim. The good is, I want to see that the Aveda. Let's see Aveda first, then we'll see Ki Aveda. But based on what we're saying, it can make a lot of sense. Because the Ki Aveda precedes Aveda. The Ki Aveda is making you into a Kohen Ovid. That's why he first talks about that. And that's why it's only Ki Aveda, because it's not Mamish Aveda. It's not you're not doing it. You're only becoming Muchan LaAveda. Then comes the Aveda, and that's the next halacha. One more, the Kuda, which will make a lot of sense according to this. The Rambam writes that you don't have to wash your hands all the time. However, only once in the morning. And that's the next halacha gimel. However, there are four things that shouldn't happen. Don't leave the Mikdash. Don't go to sleep. Don't go to the bathroom. And don't forget about what you're doing. Like you see, don't be Masir Das. If you do any of those, you got to wash your hands. However, he writes that if you're only go out of the Mikdash, you're not Masir Das, you don't have to wash it. Okay, so we know there's Masir Das. What about you sleeping? What's wrong with sleeping? So the Kesef Mishnah says, sleeping is Masir Das. The Sfas says, that's how the Rambam seems to say. He says, Yashan Ayasir that. And then there's the big issue. When it comes to tefillin, the Magen Avraham says that falling asleep for a short period of time is not considered Ezra Das. Oh, Ezra Das means Scheit and Kalas Reish. And Alter Rebbe adds a line, beautiful line, that ve'ein b'shinim shem Ezra Das, which Ezra Das would k'shayim et b'scheit and Kalas Reish. Oh, matcha daita b'tzorchi aguf, because she yashu shechayich kol again, Yashu is better, you forget the whole world. You're better off sleeping sometimes. So, okay, you can say there's a different Ezra Das for Avoid in the Mikdash to tefillin, but the Nekuda Alter Rebbe makes it very hard to say that. So Sasemis Taka says, you have to use Sasemis to say that. He says that the reason that that a yait say that somebody goes to sleep has to wash his hands because it's considered like he went out of the Mikdash. Because what happens when you sleep? Your nefesh goes out of your goof. And therefore it's considered you left. Your nefesh left. So however, with what we've been saying, it can be very good. You're not Masir Das when you sleep, but you're not an Avid. You can't be considered an Avid in the Biat Hamikdash when you sleep. But there's no question, you need to have your mind set. And perhaps that's why Yotzel L'chutz and you weren't Masir Das, because you're still, your mind is there. As we speak many times, forget the fact that you're sleeping, you're not in the Mikdash, you cannot be considered an Ovid in the Mikdash. If you walk out and you're not Masir Das, you're still Ovid. Okay, that's more on other areas. Anyway, Freiliche Chanukah, seid gesund und stark, and we will see you, Metz Hashem, again. Sei gesund und a guten Erev Shabbos.